So the median net worth for someone in their 20s is about $7,000. Well, I just turned 20 myself, and I have a net worth closer to that of a 40-year-old. So how exactly did I achieve this, and why are so many other people not doing as well? I think part of this comes down to the poor mindset in America, or at least that's what I call it. What I mean by this is a lot of people in America have the mindset of a poor person. It's not just that they are poor necessarily, because you could be, making a lot of money or even have like an okay net worth, like be pretty average and still have the poor mindset. So what exactly do I mean by poor mindset? Let's first talk about what a rich mindset would look like. A rich mindset would look like abundance. It would look like planning for the future. It would look like investing into oneself. It'd just be prioritizing things that make one rich in all areas of your life. So what exactly then is the poor mindset? Well, obviously it would be the opposite of that, right? So we're talking about people who, maybe invest lightly, don't really, care too much about self-improvement. People who are okay with where they are at, if they're comfortable. And listen, if that's the life you want to live, I'm not gonna should you know what I mean? Do whatever you want in your life, but if you want to have a life where you don't have to worry about paying the bills, you can enjoy the hobbies you want at any time, you can do work that you love, then I'd suggest you flip this poor mindset, because it is destroying America. Okay, well, we know what the poor mindset kinda is, but let me give you an example of, what it looks like to have a poor mindset in today's society. People that are in the poor mindset will a lot of the times use, the phrase like, I can't do X. For example, Gen Z can't buy houses, or I can't invest because I have too many living expenses, or I don't make enough money, right? This is the poor mindset, right? A rich mindset individual would say, all right, how do I do these things? Not can I or can't I, because they know they can. So why is this detrimental? Who cares, if I have the poor mindset, right? Like, even if I say something, it doesn't mean I necessarily, won't ever do it, right? And I'd say that's, true to a certain extent, right? Like, you could say, oh yeah, I'm gonna invest, and then not invest. Or vice versa. You could say, oh, I'm not gonna invest right now, but, in actuality, you are, in the background investing in a 401k that, you're just taking the match from, right? That's investing still. How this poor mindset can actually be really detrimental, though, is because putting the notion that you can't in your mind literally makes your body feel like, okay, if I can't do this, then why even try? So think about this. If you really wanted a house, right? But you said, oh, I can't buy a house because I'm, in Gen Z and houses are too expensive. Well, you're literally voicing that, you're manifesting that into reality, because as you're saying that, you're not going to be doing any of the things it requires to actually get a house, right? So if I don't think something can happen, then why would I even attempt to do the steps that would actually take for me to get to that goal? So instead of having the mindset of oh yeah, I just can't have a house, and then never saving for a house, how about instead you do what I personally have done, and that is have a written plan of exactly what I'm gonna do. example, if you're trying to buy a house, and let's say you really just want like the median house, okay? Well, first of all, you got to understand what it would take to get a house. So let's just say you want to put, 5 to 10% down. Okay, so you say, so how much can I save per month? And let's say it's like $2,000. Well, if you wanted to buy a $400,000 house, let's just say, and you could save $2,000 a month. If you wanted to put, a decent size down, meaning like 10%, let's say, simply all you have to do is actually look at the numbers, and you realize things aren't as bad as you're making them out to be. If you wanted to put 5% down, for example, all you'd have to do would be to save for about 10 months. And if you wanted to put 10% down, it'd take you 20. And if you wanted to put 20% down, it would take you, 40 months, right? But that's why I personally would recommend, putting down a decently low down payment on your first house, because, real estate generally goes up, so you don't want to miss out on the wave. But that's not personalized investing advice, and this is just a general video of mindset. So I won't get too into the weeds, but that is one portion of it. And then another portion of it is like, okay, I don't want, the house to take up more than 25% of my gross annual income. Well, I guess just to say monthly income, since we're doing this based on monthly, but we already know that you could save, $2,000 a month, and you're probably already paying for some sort of rent, right? So you could roll that up together and be like, okay, with this free money, am I able to afford a house? And if this is really what I want, And then you'd have to just do the math based on your own personal situation. And it's as simple as that. A lot of people will literally just see like, oh yeah, house has gone up, 30% within the last, 6 years or whatever. I don't know the actual statistics, but let's just pretend it's that. And then it's just like, oh, well, if it's growing at that fast a rate, my wage is not keeping up with that, okay? So then why would I ever save? But that's not really how everything works, But that's not how you should be thinking about it. And that's what, the poor mindset is really all about. And that's why the poor mindset is really just overall dangerous. You're basically saying I can't to what other people have already done, just because you think your situation is special. Listen, if this makes you feel any better or really just puts it into perspective, there have been people in worse situations than yours that are doing 2 times better than you minimum right now. All right? So no matter how, gloomy your present might look, don't make that present turn into the rest of your life. So the poor mindset is, stagnation. It's I can't, and people like me don't, etc. But the rich mindset is I can, and I will, and I'll find a way no matter what. If someone says it's impossible, good. Make the universe try. God damn. Gotta love the bumps in the corners making my fucking shit bottom out. So the reality is that a lot of Americans have this mindset, and I think it's really not that hard to change after you start looking at things like in a super logical sense, and also maybe not trying to get to the end goal in the fastest way possible, right? Like, okay, yeah, the fastest way to, have a home and never, pay a mortgage would be to bet all my money on a Nvidia options right before earnings or some shit, right? Yeah, I could easily do that, but I also could lose my ass, right? So like a lot of Americans either will think stuff like that is too risky, and they won't even look at the less risky options. Let's just say, buying shares of Nvidia for the long time. Or they'll go head first into like dangerous situations. Which obviously isn't ideal either. And that is really the poor mindset, is having, no long-term thinking, or like what may look risky now in the long term could actually be the safest option. Like, you know, the stock market in the short term looks really risky, but in the long term, if you would have just kept cash, you'd be in a way worse off position. So I think all of this combined is really setting a lot of people in America back, and really having this mindset is truthfully harmful, but I think we can change it, and I know you can. I hope this gave you some value and some perspective on what you can do to change your mindset going forward to become more wealthy in all areas of your life. Thanks for watching.